Heyo everybody, Haku here with my live reaction for episode 4 of Tower of God, Kami no Toho Oji no Kikan, or season 2. So I'm a little excited, I'm a little nervous. This is probably the latest I've been with one of these anime reactions so far. And it's because I'm a little bit nervous. I've heard some people say that they didn't really mind this episode, some people say that they really hated this one, so I am nervous. I do think that so far my opinion has just been that it's solid, it's whatever. I do think you're getting a lesser experience than if you read the manhwa, but and like that's a bad thing. It's a bad thing that you wait 4 years from season 1 to season 2. The manhwa that this is adapting, this was written like 11 or so years ago. Actually, probably much more than that. It's maybe like 12 or 13 years ago. So all of this was written a long time ago. You've been waiting a lot since season 1 of the anime, and it's a bummer that you spend that time and it's still kind of a lesser experience than what you can get from reading something that was written that long ago. So, again, I think it's probably going to be fine, but I would implore you, if you are anime onlys watching, I've said it at the intro of every reaction so far, that I have already read. Not only have I read, I've been doing videos for 8 years. So I have already seen this, and I would implore you, if you're anime only, don't worry, my videos aren't going to be spoilery, that you go and read. I would really, really, really recommend reading. And two things I want to get into before I start reacting to this. I, of course, like I did last time, if I feel like there's anything that I need to bring up some panels from the manhwa to talk about, I will. But I watch a lot of reactions to these episodes. I love doing it. And in a lot of them, I've seen two things that people were confused about, being why did Prince just think, oh man, Viol must have killed Rap Devil or Rob Devil? And also the other thing being, why does Yiwa act the way she does towards the characters? So first, I'll bring up, and both of these are questions that are because of things that they just left out from the anime. So in the manhwa, I talked about it towards the end of last reaction, there is a scene in the baths, when all the characters are in the baths, where Viol asks Rob Devil, so you really beat Hots or whatever. And because of that, that leaves us who, if we're like, because of the flashbacks and everything, they're kind of making it pretty obvious. Like if we're assuming that Viola's bomb, or like, oh, he has a connection to Hatsu, he might actually have like a motivation to want to go after Rob Devil, and so that adds a little bit of tension here. But because they leave that scene out of the anime, then when Prince is like, it must have been Viol, people are like, wait, why would you jump to that conclusion? Also, something that I think is important that they didn't really emphasize a lot in the anime was the fact that Love said, okay, you can either drop the number of regulars here to below 7 or come get the connector from me. And there was always this question, this tension in the manhwa of, is he going to go after the characters? And when he doesn't, it's like, oh, he went after the ranker instead of going after the regulars. So that's something that they didn't really emphasize as much, the idea that he chose to go after Love rather than to go after the regulars. And the other thing being the way that Yiwa acts the way she does. In one scene that they left out, there's the comedy scene where she's like, oh, why would you want me on your team? Because I have breasts, you smelly male monkey. And then Wang Nan jokes like, okay, well, look what I've got, and everybody stops him. There's that scene, but also last week a lot of people were like, why is she acting the way she is, where she's like, what would you want from me? Of course you would want my body. And then when Viol says he doesn't want her body, she's like, how dare he, and gets super upset. And people are like, why is she acting like that? That's an annoying trope. And this is something that I think is something I can talk about even to you manhwa readers. I personally think the best experience for reading the manhwa is, at least for like season 1 and the early parts of season 2, read the chapter, read the blog post associated with it, read the chapter, read the blog post, etc., back and forth. And like 99% of people who have started reading Tower of God in the last 10 years probably did not read that way, because it's not as easy as it was originally. The blog post used to be at the end of each chapter until Line took over the translation, and then that stopped stopped happening, you would have to go find the blog post on your own. So the series very often hits you with lines or circumstances that really don't make as much sense if you don't know blog post info. It, like, very often you're, like, presumed to know this stuff. So this is something that I think could confuse even manhwa viewers. Why is she acting like this? But we would know from the blog post, she's from the Yeon family. And the Yeon family has this culture where it's matriarchal, women get all of the power, males aren't allowed to hold positions of power, they're treated poorly, and coming from this culture that she's grown up in is what influences her actions here, where she's like, of course you would want me, I'm an attractive woman, or I'm so insulted that you would think this of me, like, or that they would room me with a man. She's thinking these things. And something that goes on further, again, I won't spoil anything for anime onlys, something that's important for her character is coming to grips with the idea of the 10 families, and specifically the idea of her family. That's really important to her character arc and her character writing in general. So we start off early with that, with just this culture that's been ingrained into her from her own family, and she's immediately kind of getting hit with stuff like that, causing conflict among what's happening right now. But I just wanted to bring up those two things as examples of things that I saw some people confused about when it came to the anime, and it's just because the anime doesn't give you enough information to have gotten why those things happened that way. So I wanted to bring those up before I started reacting this week. So either way, I'll pause and discuss as often as I need to while I'm going through this, and I guess that's about it. I guess let's just start watching. I did want to say, last week I forgot to put the filter up, but I managed to get it up on YouTube publicly anyway. I managed to edit it enough that it was fine, but the filter will be back over it this week just to be safe. Just because the first episode, I struggled to get it up. I had to try, well, that sounded awful. I had to try a few times to get the video up without getting blocked in every country, but I didn't have as many problems with episodes 2 and 3. So again, if I chop it up enough, if I put this filter over it, we should be good. So yeah, let's just go watch. We're just starting right where we left off with Violan Love. One thing I love, no pun intended. Oh, we're getting the parents killed backstory. Okay, that's cool. What I was going to say, one thing I love is how the anime presented him rotating and spinning his shinsu, which is something that the blog posts tell us. Oh, this is good too. Oh yeah, I won't know until I see them. That's so good. We know from the blog post that he's a specialist in spinning and rotating shinsu, but it's harder to tell in the manhwa, in my opinion. But they made it clearer here. Again, I like that she's bringing up here that instead of killing them, he went after the ranker. I don't even remember if Tin was ever really even name dropped in the manhwa, other than being on the, like, scoreboard for the last test. Okay, I think that's something that I will say I was spoiled that people complained about, and I kind of agree that they're like, these guys wouldn't have been able to handle Yiwa. She should have been able to take them. In the manhwa, they trick her into being inhabited by that green guy, but here, they just kind of blitz her. I like that they leave in this scene. I thought this was maybe one thing that was going to get skipped. Them taking this room. I love, even in the midst of being betrayed, how in this scene, Wangnan still, like, is worried and concerned about Nia. I think this is solid for, like, what little bit of time we had. Like, even in the manhwa, it's not like we had that long with Nia, and Nia's kind of been in the background anyway. But I think this is solid. And see, this means a lot coming from Wangnan, knowing that this is, like the first episode's title said, this is his last chance. He has to deal with the, skeleton diet if he doesn't pass this time around. Embrace evil. They are making Lurker from him kicking the old lady to that. Just cartoonishly evil. Honestly, I don't see what people's big deal with this episode was. That was really that was like, to me, it was less emotional than you feel going through the manhwa a bit, but really, I don't think that was particularly bad. We have the blue ore! He copied Cutter, but then gets stopped with his own reverse flow control from Love. I don't know if I like some of the line changes here, unless they're gonna say it later and I'm just wrong. But, you know, in the manhwa he says, it's not the good guys who take down the bad guys, it's the worst guys. Is this where he says that? It might be later in the episode. I might be getting ahead of myself. But also, when he says, like, Love looks shocked here when he says they killed Nia, but in the manhwa I'm pretty sure he says they killed Nia, and Love's like, regulars die during tests, this happens. And I do think a lot of the visuals are pretty stiff compared to how gorgeous, like, the early Season 2 art is just so good in the manhwa. So it's, again, there have been quite a few shots that have been like a little disappointing where it's like, it looks so much better with this like gorgeous early Season 2 art compared to how the anime looks. Interesting. So, Sulsa, is he saying that as in like her abilities? Or is he saying that, is that the name of the green guy? Okay, and they kept that in pretty much as is. But they add more here with this guy not just immediately getting turned into... So they censored it a little bit. They made this guy seem a little tougher, but he just gets turned into blood splatter basically immediately. And I love him turning his words back on him here with this. It's so good. That was so good. I freaking love Koryang so much. Right, Akuma-sama. So they're calling the thing that he uses to control Shinsu water bottle. I've never like heard it like translated as that term, but that's actually interesting. Like, I kind of wish they would have stuck with that a little bit more, just having devices that let people use Shinsu and calling them like water bottles essentially. I know the title of this one is like called Ramen in the Blue Sky or something like that, but I really wish they would have kept the title The Praise for this, because it shows how like Wangnan and Nia were praised to Lurker, who was prey to Prince's father, and like everyone is prey to someone in this like tower situation. I can already see some anime-onlys maybe not liking this, but I actually really love this scene. Like, him forgiving Lurker because of what we just went over, how everyone is prey for someone else. Like, everyone climbing has done something bad, and if he can't forgive Lurker here, then what about the people who need to forgive Nia, or the people that need to forgive him? They also kind of ruined a little bit of that build-up there, where the manhwa really makes it seem like Viol's just gonna pass without the rest of them, but then the rest of the names get announced, showing you that Wangnan tricked him into passing all 8 of them, instead of just passing alone. Talking to my goat! The submerged fish. Oh wait, did they actually call him submerged fish here? Hold on, I gotta go back. They called him submerged fish instead of deep sea fish, right? That's what I'm used to calling him as, but it's been so long. Yeah, they used submerged fish, the OG. I really think people were overreacting. I did not think this episode was bad. I mean, there are some critiques I've got, definitely, that I've mentioned before, and that I'll keep mentioning. Once we get to the end of this, but generally, it was not that bad. Again, this is what I was talking about like before. Everybody has to do some bad things to climb the tower. So it's like, if he can't forgive Lurker, then what about all the people that he screwed over or might screw over? Man, I got goosebumps. I really like that scene of him just staring up at the sky there. Alright, so I actually don't think I'm going to do a super long outro this time. Like, I thought that was solid. I didn't think it was bad. I do still think that the manhwa is a better way to experience the story, but I am kind of that way with a lot of things. Beastars, I'm like, oh, the manga's so much better. Hero Academia, I think that should be just an objective, though, where it's like, yeah, the manga's a lot better than the anime. But you know, I don't know. Maybe it's just sort of like the middle seasons. Maybe the beginning and end of Hero Academia is strong. It's just the middle seasons where it's like the manga's so much better than the anime because the anime's so mid. But either way, I really think that story-wise, they nailed what they needed to. Will you get a little bit more from the source material? Yeah. Would I recommend the source material if you want that bit more? Yeah. But really, I think they hit what they needed to hit. I think my big criticisms here are just the visuals, really. I think the direction could be a lot more purposeful. I think the direction, like, would I have loved for us to have gotten an adaptation that was something like Mappa Hands Out, essentially? Yeah, sure. But this, again, I watch enough anime to know what bad animation looks like and to know what below average animation looks like, and this is just kind of solid. This is maybe even a little bit above average. But it's not the best, it's not the greatest ever, and it would be amazing if it was. So I would say just that. There are things that I just think straight up look better in the still panels of the manhwa than they do here. And I guess that's really my only complaint. Yeah, I don't get it. I mean, people are always going to compare things to the original. That's what most of my reactions have been, to be honest with you, just comparing it to the original source material. But even then, I don't know. I don't think it was that bad. I really didn't have any huge problems. At the end, of course, Kuhn's outfit has changed from the Girl Scout outfit. There were people saying that like a month ago that was going to happen. He doesn't have the Girl Scout outfit. We're taking out a lot of outfits. That's something that I don't like. I wish they kept all of the outfits because there's so many great ones in Tower of God. So seeing Viol use one of his worst outfits early, and we're going to get this outfit again later. That might be a hot take. That one might be controversial, but yeah, that is probably my least favorite Viol fit, and we're just reusing it for whatever reason. When I would have been more happy if we had reused his fit from this original test, if we used it here in this test, and then replaced this one that he's wearing now later on with that. I would have maybe preferred that even. But yeah, I guess that's really about it. I don't think there's much else that I can think of right now. Again, after watching everybody else's reactions and seeing the episode multiple times through that, I'm probably going to pick up on a lot more stuff. But just on my first watch, I don't know. I don't really have many complaints other than, yeah, just the visuals. And even then, if I was an anime only, I don't think I'd have any complaints about that. I think the only reason that I even have complaints about that is just because I know what the manhwa looks like ahead of time. In addition to that, is there anything else I can think of? I think one thing toward the end there, did they say the prince, his past? Is that what Augusta said? Something like that? That's something that I thought somebody said that they changed it to say that Wangnan had passed, but I'm pretty sure they just said the prince had passed. Hold on, I'll actually look back just so I can, like, since I'm right here anyway. Oh yeah, it actually says Ja Wangnan passed our test, which is weird, because that implies that FUG knows about Wangnan? That's really weird, and that changes a lot of the context that I would think about that line from, because originally they say the prince has passed, which makes me think, are they talking about Wangnan, because he's got the Zahard ring? Is he the Prince of Zahard? And this is called Return of the Prince, all of that stuff. Or is it talking about Viol? Because if Viol is Bam, then it's like, okay, Bam was the main character. Him coming back now after this time skip is a return of the Prince of the manhwa, the Prince of the series, the main character. And also Viol, in a lot of ways, is the Prince of FUG. Again, things that you would know by now from the blog posts, but not necessarily from reading, and the anime isn't telling you, is things you would know from now from the blog post, because again, they expect you to know things like that, is that the way that FUG works is that they're ruled by 11 Slayers. There's at least 11 Slayer seats, but 4 of those seats are currently vacant. The most recent seat that got filled was Karaka's, who was mentioned here by Love. That's important. He was the most recent Slayer. So there are 4 empty seats, and Viol introduces himself during the strongest regular test as the Slayer candidate, Juviole Grace. So being Slayer candidate, he is candidate for one of those 4 seats. He's not just in FUG, this biggest criminal organization of the tower. He's in a position where he could become one of their 11 leaders. In addition to that, one of the Slayers that exists, the top Slayer, the leader of the organization, is Grace Mircea Luzlek, and he kind of adopted Viole into his family. 25th Bomb was the name that we know from Season 1, was given to him by Rachel, who found him and lived with him in the cave. But then, after he can't go by 25th Bomb anymore, because of the events of Season 1, again, if this is... I don't even know why I'm playing with this if this is him thing. I see so many reactors that are going here and trying to pretend like, oh, is it Bomb, is it not Bomb? When the marketing, the series itself, the flashbacks that they're beaming at us is not exactly being subtle. But being adopted by Grace Mircea Luzlek, he's given the family name and becomes Juviole Grace. And so, again, having the leader of the organization's name, being kind of adopted into their family, being put in a position where you could become one of the 11 leaders of this organization. That line has always been, is it talking about Return of the Prince as in Wang Nan is going to get recognition and he is potentially a Prince of Zahard because he has that ring, or is it talking about the Prince, Return of the Prince, as in Viol is kind of the Prince of FUG and also the main character of the manhwa returning? So which is the title referring to? And that's always been one of the interesting things to me about this section of the story, because you go through this section of the story and it kind of applies to both. It's one of those things where the title kind of applies to both. You're talking about Wang Nan and you're talking about Viole. But then here they're specifically saying Ja Wang Nan passed the test, which changes things. Because to me, that just, the one thing that makes me think, the one thing that I'm like, whoa, that changes a lot, is it makes me think that, okay, if they were, like, why wouldn't, and again, the line makes more sense talking about Viole, because, again, he's FUG. We have Submerged Fish from Season 1 and Augustus. Like, this is how we know he's worked. And he says, just as FUG wishes here, making it clear that it is FUG. Not just him by association with the Submerged Fish. Which, again, from Season 1, if you don't remember, Submerged Fish was Yu Han Sung. Or in the line translation, they call him Deep Sea Fish. I don't remember what Season 1 of the anime called him. So from that, we know, okay, this is FUG plotting stuff, and it would make more sense for them to be talking about Viole, because, of course, they want an FUG guy to pass. But then, they specifically hear, like, you hear them say, oh, the Prince has passed just like FUG wanted, or whatever, and you're like, oh, they're talking about Viole, like, the Prince of FUG, basically, but there's this inkling of, like, but could you also apply it to Wang Nan? But then, they're just straight up here saying that it's Wang Nan. It's like, why do they want him to pass? Not Viol. Like, the whole goal of Viol, yeah, this actually doesn't make sense. I think this is a plot hole. I think they messed up here. Well, actually, hold on. Let me go listen to what they're saying in Japanese. I was going to say, I think they messed up here because the whole goal of Viol here was to pass by himself without any teammates. So they wouldn't want Wang Nan to pass. So it wouldn't make sense that they're like, just as FUG wanted, Wangnan is passed. But you know what I think might have happened? I'm going to go listen now. His name in Japanese is Ojinaru, which is, so his name in the Korean is Jawangnan. And I think Nanwangja, if you take the 3 syllables and reverse them, is I am Prince. And here they call him Ojinaru. Oji is, I guess, Prince, and Naru is become. So like become Prince. So what if they just said Oji has passed or whatever, and the translators for the anime was like, oh, they're talking about Ojinaru, they're talking about Wangnan, and that's why they translated it as Wangnan, but in reality, Oji is just Prince, like the prince is passed, and it is still that vague thing. So let me actually listen to it really quick. No, they did specifically say Ojinaru. So yeah, I think that's a plot hole. I think that's straight up a plot hole. I don't know that FUG should even know about Wangnan at this point in the story, or think that he's important whatsoever. From what we know, they don't. From what we know, they don't know about him. They don't care about him. The whole thing was that Veal was supposed to pass this by himself. So I think that, again, I found a second criticism other than just the visuals being kind of whatever. The second criticism, this is straight up a plot hole. Like, they should not know or care about Wangnan whatsoever, because again, I won't spoil anything for anime onlys, but continuing in the future, some of the actions that FUG takes, they clearly don't know who he is, because they wouldn't be making these moves, I would not think. So yeah, I think that's straight up a plot hole. But either way, I'm going to end things here, I guess. I talked about the episode for a bit, so if you did like the video, comment down there to tell me what you thought of this episode, my thoughts and reactions. Subscribe for more. Tower of God, much more on the channel. Again, if you're new, if you aren't an anime only, even if you are, I've been doing Tower of God videos for 8 years, so there's plenty to check out. Follow on Twitter if you want. If you want a link to the Discord server, it's free and open for anyone. If you'd like to help support the channel by dropping a super thanks, that kind of thing's appreciated. But if you want to, not just support the channel, but also get your name at the end of every video, get One Piece videos a little bit early, you can hit join down below to become a member. Go to patreon.com/HakuOfTheTubes, or a link will be in the description to become a patron. Thank you to people who are already patrons and members. Thank you to Chosen Regular, Evan Hawley, Magical Girls, FR No Abyss Knight, JA, The D-Band, and Irony. Charity students, David Langstaff and Folded Goal, Slayer candidates, SG and Stance Eater, and Pure Element, Pate Ardialo. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.